Hello, listeners, and welcome to Pop Screen, part of the Geek Show podcast network. We are the Geek Show podcast dedicated to the good, the bad, and the befuddling of movies, either starring, by, or about pop stars. No, the podcast covers such a broad range of musical and cinematic genres, from country and western to hip-hop, from documentaries to science fiction. I'm your host, Graham Williamson. I'm a writer for Horrified, the British horror website, and the Geek Show itself, where I do film reviews and write-ups on classic Doctor Who episodes. I also write inlay booklets for second run DVD. I am joined this week by
Gav Smith. Hello.
Hello there, Gav. Where can people find you?
You can find me at the My Favourite Film podcast on Twitter. That's at My Fave Film. I also write for the Geek Show website, as you just said, doing film reviews and that type of thing. So, yeah.
This week, everyone remembers the first time they heard a funky diabetic, which is probably why A Tribe Called Quest received the extraordinary honour of this week's film, the first ever documentary made about any hip-hop band ever seriously. Beats, Rhymes and Life, The Travels of A Tribe Called Quest is directed by prolific character actor and social media nuisance Michael Rappaport. It's a chronicle of an act who changed their genre forever, inviting the whole of black musical history from jazz and soul to the block party. It also proved distressingly adept at reopening old wounds, which I'm sure we'll get to. But before we do, first documentary about a hip-hop band, what the fuck?
I thought the same as well when you said, "Can we watch this one?"
Yeah,
it's a bit of an odd one, isn't it? But you know, it's an interesting story they've got in their history.
Yeah,
so it makes for a good documentary. Yeah,
it does. Yeah, I mean, I was mostly just agog that it took till when was this released? Like about 2011 for someone to make a documentary about a hip hop band.
Yeah, there's not really been many since either. So.
No, there's been Spike Jonze's Beastie Boys documentary for Apple TV.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there must be others that I'm forgetting, but I'm struggling to think.
Yeah. So am I.
Yeah.
But there must be others. There must be. Other than the Beastie Boys, obviously.
Other than the Beastie Boys, yeah. I suppose NWA got the big Hollywood biopic treatment. Like,
yes.
Maybe there's a documentary about them, but it would be somewhat within its shadow, you know?
Yeah. This is a very interesting film. I didn't know a lot about the history of the band.
Yeah.
I obviously, you know songs, because there's got so many songs that you just know straight away. I think it starts off with "Can I Kick It?" and everyone knows "Can I Kick It?" So
exactly, yeah.
It comes in with that type of song, and you know the band straight away. But a lot of the story behind the band and the fights and things that were going on at the time, it's interesting viewing.
It absolutely is. Yeah. And I knew the music pretty well. I'd sort of that kind of Native Tongues, I think, was the sort of school of hip hop they were part of. But that kind of Native Tongues or Daisy Age, De La Soul stuff was always something I was kind of aware of when I was a kid, but I didn't get seriously into until I was older. So I did like it. I'm still one of those people who cannot decide whether Low End Theory is better than Midnight Marauders, so don't try and pin me to the wall on that.
Maybe later.
But yeah, like you, I didn't know much about the behind the scenes stuff. I suppose I'd always thought that Q-Tip seemed like a pretty stand-up bloke, which is an impression that it's not overturned by the documentary, but it takes a couple of bashes, I think.
Yeah, it's slightly not not overturned, but slightly undermined, maybe.
Yeah.
He he comes across, when he's talking, he comes across very well, as if he's a little bit unaware of some of the things he's doing and the effect they're having on the rest of the band, in particular Fife Dog. But he still seems at the end of it to know where he's at and comes off all right, actually.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's part of you that has to factor in that you're an ambitious guy who starts a band when you're a teenager.
Yeah.
And everyone says that you're redefining music forever. And it's like, it's hard to think of someone who wouldn't be a bit of a dick in those circumstances, I think.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
I mean, in truth, I mean, they did redefine at the time. Hip hop music, rap music was all about smashing the state and, you know, being the underdogs or whatever else. They seemed to bring a much more positive spin on life through their music. And obviously they worked a lot with, as you mentioned before, De La Soul and that type of band as well, to do the same type of thing. And their music was far more upbeat and more commercially available, I suppose, than the likes of your NWAs.
Yeah, I mean, NWA's status as a very controversial band both limited the distribution of their music and was the best promotional tool they could possibly have.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think they say at some point in the film, actually, they say, you know, we're not, there's a time and a place for singing "Fuck the Police," and that's not where we're at.
Yeah.
We're trying to do something else, and that was exactly what their music was about, was bringing something different to the genre and I don't know, getting us all dancing. I guess that was the point of it, wasn't it? Have a good time.
I think like the fact that they weren't rapping about like gangland stuff, I didn't think that was them trying to be respectable. I never got the feeling that like they weren't a band like Arrested Development who have some fabulous songs, but there are several Arrested Development songs where they're talking about their like peers who do gangster rap, and you just think, you sound like a school teacher. I'm sorry, this is just finger wagging shit.
Yeah.
There's nothing
there's a bit
like
of that, isn't there?
Yeah.
No, there's not. No,
No.
They seem to. I mean, they sing about having a good time and whatever else. You know, there's a lot of songs that they do that are just about being on stage and about having a life and so on. So
it's interesting that when you compare it to even someone like Queen Latifah in her early stuff, it's interesting how there isn't that much political stuff in A Tribe Called Quest. You know, they're certainly not Public Enemy.
No, not at all.
The political statement in it, I think, is that they're taking this genre, which at the time was new and was at the center of a moral panic, and saying, no, actually, this is part of a lineage going back to Charles Mingus and Minnie Riperton.
Yeah.
I think I love it when documentaries about music actually analyze the music, and the bit with Ali Shaheed Muhammad talking about how he turned Inside My Love by Minnie Riperton into the backing track to Lyrics to Go is great.
Yes, it's a really interesting piece, that part of it, and then they're going into the whole thing of copyright and how much it costs to make that bit and how it made the album actually cost more to make than it should have and so on. Yeah, but it is a really interesting piece to see them really analyze that song. I think that's the only one they really do fully analyze as to how they got to where they were, but it's a nice sort of breakdown of that individual song. Because a lot of the film focuses on Fife Dog. It seems to be more about him than any of the others, because it's about his struggle really with diabetes.
With diabetes and with Q-tip to a great extent.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
I suppose so, yeah. But I mean, it's weird because I guess a lot of sort of hip hop artists at that time, they've got talking about addiction to drugs and things like that, whereas Fife Dog says, you know, I'm addicted to sugar.
Yes.
And that was his major addiction, was sugar and drinking sugary drinks. But obviously, as a diabetic, that was not the best thing for him at all.
There is a weird point, isn't there, where he says that and you think, oh, what was sugar slang for again? And then, no, sugar, he means actual sugar.
Yeah, I did think that at first. I kind of went, well, what do you mean then? And then he was talking then about drinking pop and having slushies and whatever. I know it's actually sugar that he's addicted to.
Yes.
Yeah. But I mean, Five Dog comes out of this, I guess, very well. He seems to be, as I said, he's the major sort of talking point. Certainly, I think there's a point in the middle of the film where they've kind of gone, right, we've gone through the albums now, and we're now at a point where the band's breaking up. And I think at that point, the film really, really swings towards Five Dog and towards his story and how they got to a point where the band broke up because of his medical state and the way that Q-Tip was then treating him because of that.
Yeah. And that's the kind of the last act of it, which is kind of, I mean, it's not bad. I don't think it's the wrong thing to do from a filmmaking perspective, but I just wish they could have filmed this a few years later and you could have included that amazing final album they made after Five Dog's death. And, you know, it's a bit of a grim thing to end on, I think.
Possibly. But I mean, I suppose by not doing that, it left it on a far more upbeat note, I suppose, in that they're finishing it with, you know, Five Dog's still making music.
Yeah.
You know, and Q-Tip's gone his own way and is making his music, and it's very obvious that, you know, that there's two lots there, and they're both doing what they want to do, even though they're doing it separately. Yeah, which is a more upbeat ending, I suppose, than focusing on that. But I guess you know, they didn't know at the time that was going to happen. So in hindsight, you could go, yeah, it would be better to do this later, but you don't know when these things are going to happen. So.
Oh yeah, hindsight's an easy thing. Yeah, but it's true. But to go back to the start of it, one of the best things about the documentary, I think, is that it not only describes the inspiration they got from each other and the inspiration that started them making music, but it also sketches in the whole scene, the whole world of hip hop back when it was very much a subculture rather than something that's like a massive global success.
Yeah. I mean, they talk about all of the. There's a point where they're talking about just. I can't remember which one it is now. Is talking about the fact that you live near a school. Yeah. And they were just getting turntables out in the schoolyard, and people were just coming up and they were just putting on records and rhyming over the top of them, and all these DJs doing different things with music than the normal.
Yeah.
Which then they talk then about DJ Red Alert and him having a show on television, how that inspired them to do what they were doing.
Yeah.
I mean, this film is then, it's absolutely full of every single hip hop artist that was around at the beginning, the sort of birth of it. I mean, if you look through the cast list on this, it's an unbelievable cast list.
It is, yeah.
Most of them appear at the end, just a final bit at the end, just going "I am" and saying who they are. But like I say, you just look through the list and it's just full of all the greatest, really.
I think my favourite is it Questlove who says, "Oh, when I listened to Low End TV, I realised jazz wasn't just that boring shit in my dad's record collection."
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, there's lots of bits like that, because there's Busta Rhymes even pops in at one point.
He does,
and he's not on a talking head at all. They don't talk to him particularly, but just coming and just say how fantastic it is listening to their albums. The fact that Busta Rhymes is popping in and saying, "Yeah, I listen to your albums all the time," and it gets me motivated for going out on stage. And it's like, all right, okay, wouldn't have expected that from him, but yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. That's quite funny, actually, isn't it? Thinking of someone listening to this really mellow music to get hyped up on stage. Maybe Busta Rhymes' problem is that he just needs to be brought down a bit. And,
yeah. I mean, he always seems very up a height. I mean, his music's so different from A Tribe Called Quest.
Yeah.
To think that he listens to Tribe Called Quest before going out and singing his own stuff is kind of really weird.
It's very odd. Yeah. And I think it's also a snapshot of like a vanished media landscape where if you wanted to listen to a song, you had to find a radio show that might be playing it.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's what they talk about all the time, isn't it? That everyone tuned in for Red Alert show because it was the only place they could hear the latest songs in the genre that they wanted to listen to. It wasn't on mainstream radio. I think they do talk about the fact that, turning the dial and actually making sure they were getting to the right dial at the right time to hear this music that they couldn't hear anywhere else. It wasn't mainstream at all.
It is such a romantic thing to me to think of like the explosion of creativity at that time. Last year, I read Jeff Chang's Can't Stop, Won't Stop, which is a full history of hip hop, published in about 2005, so very out of date now. But
yeah,
purely in terms of like chronicling the early stuff and what the atmosphere was like around New York and Los Angeles when this started happening. It's such a beautiful book.
Yeah. I must pick that one up and have a bit of a read of that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I haven't read it. I like to say a lot of the history of hip hop, I suppose I'll have missed out on it because it wasn't ever really such a big thing in the UK. We got it when
it took a time, didn't it?
Yeah. And I remember sort of first time the Sugar Hill Gang appeared on Top of the Pops, and it's like they're just talking the music, which they actually referenced in their song.
What you hear is not a test. I'm rapping to the beat. Yes,
exactly. Yeah. So hip hop was just kind of in the background in the UK. But I do remember, A Tribe Called Quest appearing and kind of kick it. I mean, it was played just about everywhere, and it was a Radio 1 mainstay for a long time.
Yeah.
And that's how most people, I would have thought, heard Tribe Called Quest for the first time.
I think the other thing about like that, not knowing much of the history of the music, is that part of the reason why hip hop is culturally dominant now is that it is so immune to nostalgia in a lot of ways. Like, when you think that hip hop began, like it started coming out of the New York party scene in the mid 70s, which means that it's coming up to its 50th birthday. Like, by the time rock and roll was 50 years old, it had gone through so many retro and revivalist movements, but that's never happened with hip hop. No,
I think the main thing that's happened with hip hop was they've just got faster at rhyming.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly if you look at, like I said, Sugar Hill Gang against the things that
like Kendrick Lamar or someone's
so on,
doing.
Yeah. You get to what they are now, it's just you can't keep up with a lot of the words they're saying to a certain point.
So it's like that's like a double-edged sword to me, because I love the fact that there is still a form of music that is not getting sucked into the retro thing and is determined to innovate and improve. But it also means that a lot of the real pioneers don't get their due respects.
Yeah, true. Which I think this film, to a certain extent, puts right. Anyone who wasn't sure about what hip hop was, if you were to watch this film, you'd certainly go, "All right, okay, I see where a lot of music I listen to now actually came from and why it's the way it is, and so on." Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Like, I say, if Questlove hadn't got that copy of Low End Theory, the Roots would be making very different music.
Very different, yeah. And again, that's the whole thing of, he came across that in someone else's record collection. That's where he found it, and that's why he listened to it. So it's how music, I suppose, can evolve in that way. Yeah,
completely. Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of the band, I couldn't respect them anymore. I think they're terrific. I even think, it's obviously their worst album, but I think the Love Movement isn't terrible. Like, come on, guys, it's not bad. It's just not Midnight Marauders.
No, I mean, Midnight Marauders is the one that I guess everyone knows. All of the big songs were on that. It's when they first started, and that's the ones that were played on an endless loop, certainly in this country. But I'll be honest, not listened to loads and loads of them. I have probably heard all of the albums. They're not on my playlist on a regular loop, but some of their songs are.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's something about their music. It does make you feel better about yourself when you're listening to it. You just feel good and a bit chilled out, a bit relaxed, and just can bop along, I suppose, to a certain extent. And I'm an old man. I don't bop along very often, but...
Yes. Yeah. But as filmmaking, sort of where do we stand on it?
It's weird that it's a film. Did it get a cinema release? I don't know if it did or not.
I think so. Yeah.
it would be I think it'd be an odd film to go and see at the cinema, because it is very much, it's talking heads. You get an awful lot of, right, we're just going to talk to this person now, and they talk to them for a long time. If you're a fan of Tribe's music, it's probably not the best place to go, because I don't think they play an entire track all the way through, other than the very, very end over the final titles.
Fair point.
You get bits and pieces of their music all the way through. So you'll get bits and pieces of songs that you know, because it's all the big ones they play. But they don't really play loads of their music. Even concert footage that they put in there, it's a snippet of maybe 30 seconds of a bit of concert footage, and that's it. But there must be so much material around that they could have made a very different film, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think it's like there's a flood of documentaries about musicians at the moment, and I try and keep Pop Screen's documentary output to ones that have like some sort of cinematic importance, some sort of filmmaking innovation. You know, it's like I could very easily just fill this show with anything that's on BBC4 on a Friday night, and I don't want to do that at all.
No, I guess not. No, but I think this was probably, was it Michael Rappaport's first directed?
It was,
film. I think he might have done something else, or he might have done some TV before and from point of directing. But this was his first step into directing, and I guess he was a fan of A Tribe Called Quest before he made it, and that's why he wanted to make it. I must admit, I had a little problem trying to work out who he was when I first saw him, because I wasn't 100% sure. And then I think I twigged that he was Phoebe's boyfriend in Friends at some point, and that's where I think probably most people would know him from. So if anyone's wondering who Michael Rapaport is, that's who it is. He was the police friend. I think he was only in a few episodes, but enough that he had a big enough impact on that type of series that you'd know who he was if you saw him. He's been in lots of other things. I mean, he's been so much as an actor, character actor. He is everyone would recognize him if they saw his face, I guess. He's not really known for.
He's got the double, really. He's been in a lot of Spike Lee films, and he's had a long-running feud with Spike Lee about an argument they had over gentrification, which is like the most Spike Lee double you can possibly have.
Probably, yeah. It's an interesting film from the way it is shot together, in that it is just letting the people who are involved talk about the fact that they were involved and what their involvement was. I guess that behind the camera there was someone asking questions, but they cut all of those questions out. You never hear the questions. It is literally just like someone is talking to the camera, which a lot of documentaries do. But there's nothing hard hitting in it. It's at the start, it is very much a celebration of hip hop, A Tribe Called Quest, and their, I suppose, meteoric rise to fame to a certain extent. And then it turns into the nasty side, I suppose, and all that type of thing. But it's not delving really deeply into reasons or anything else that might have been going on in their lives at that point in time. It is just, right, it was all about the music, and this is what we were doing, and this is what we were trying to get to.
Yeah, it's not like a muckraking exercise. Like, even when it does get into the bad blood between Fife and Q-Tip, it is entirely about the direction the band was taking. That Fife has that great line where he says that on Midnight Marauders, I felt like I was really sort of coming into my own, but then for the next album, suddenly it's like Diana Ross and the Supremes. It's Q-Tip and A Tribe Called Quest all of a sudden. Yeah, which I think that must have sat badly with him for a long time. And that's what eventually, of course, broke up the band. I mean, there's some footage of, I guess it's their last concert together. I think it's their last concert together, where the night before, Phife Dawg is having issues because of his diabetes, and is having to, I guess he's fumbling his way through the lyrics. And Q-Tip says something to him on stage, which obviously
is because he doesn't understand what he's going through.
Yeah.
Which Five Dog takes offense at, obviously.
Yeah.
And that's what then causes the next night, the fact that they won't talk to each other, there's a big battle. And Q-Tip then is all about, though, getting them on stage, which I thought was quite an interesting bit of footage to have caught, because obviously they must have been behind the scenes. They must have been at that point going, we're making this documentary, we're going to follow you on this last tour.
Yeah.
And they just happened to be in the right place at the right time to record that footage of Q-Tip and Five Dog having that major argument.
Yeah.
And Q-Tip was just very much about like, no, we now need to get on stage. I'm going on stage. You guys can come with me or not.
Yeah.
And he just goes off and starts the show without them.
Yeah, there's a sort of split in the filmmaking style, I think, where, as you say, a lot of the interviews with people who aren't in A Tribe Called Quest are done in that classic talking head style that you defined. But a lot of the interviews with the band are kind of like home movies, and there seems to be this really unguarded, intimate feel to them that I guess caused everyone to drop their guard a bit.
Yeah. It's there's certain points where you just think that's been, someone's got their mobile phone out and recorded it, but I guess it was far too early, some of the footage, for them to do that. But there must have been people hanging around with them at that time that were recording stuff that then Michael Rappaport's got a hold of to make this film from. There's a lot of archive footage basically that must be hanging around with them.
Yeah, no, I do think it has like a really intimate feel, even if some of it is kind of not where I would have gone with it. I would have gone for many more sequences, like the Lyrics to Go sequence, over some of the kind of feud stuff, to be honest.
Yeah, but I guess when you're making a film like that, if you happen to be behind the scenes of a concert and you get that type of footage, you're gonna, as a filmmaker, go, I've got to focus on that. That's an amazing bit of drama that I've now captured on film. I have to use it. Or even if it was archive footage that he hadn't filmed when he's come about to make a documentary, you stumble on that and you know, I've got to use that, because that's a major turning point. That's a major dramatic scene. It changes that end of the film.
It's good storytelling, and I don't really object to anyone doing it. But I was like, I was talking to a friend recently about, Burden of Dreams, the documentary about Werner Herzog making Fitzcarraldo.
Yes.
You go into that and you think it's going to have loads of footage of Klaus Kinski off his nut raging at everyone, because we've all seen that footage from the set of Fitzcarraldo. But in fact, it's not in the film. Les Blanc shot it, and it does turn up in other films about Herzog and Kinski. But he just thought it was kind of gossipy, and it detracted from the major flow of watching Herzog actually try and make this thing. So I thought, I don't know whether that's just like a very, very distant era of documentary filmmaking where you could see a major international star go off his nuts screaming at people and just think, I don't know, it's dirty laundry, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose the fact that it was then, it's been used elsewhere and it's available to see, it's not like it's detracting from that film that it's not in there. And actually, people will probably watch that film thinking it is in there. So they think, oh, I might see the whole version of that. Maybe there's a whole load of other stuff that we haven't seen, or an explanation afterwards about why that happened. I guess it might be good publicity for it to be out there.
I think one of the reasons why the vaults opened up a bit more in terms of Kinski was that he had the good faith to die, which took a lot of the impetus to cover this stuff up away.
Well, absolutely. Once you're gone, you're fair game, aren't you? I suppose to a certain extent there. So which could be something that now happens after Five Dogs. That someone might now come and go, let's drag up some other stuff and see if we can make a sequel that beats rhymes in life that tells a different version of the story. I don't know.
It's funny that, isn't it? Because We Got It From Here, Thank You For Your Service feels very much like an album that's a snapshot of its time. There's a lot of stuff about the 2016 American election on it, but it also has that extra weight of needing to be the final Tribe Called Quest album in the way that the Love Movement wasn't. And I think it shoulders that burden really well, actually.
Yeah. And obviously not covered by this documentary at all, but yeah, there's some good tracks on there. It keeps to their same style, I suppose, that you've got that same sounding of music, and it sounds very similar.
There's some adventurous stuff on it. I think We the People is probably the toughest thing they ever recorded. That does sound like It Takes a Nation of Millions, either Public Enemy, more than it sounds like A Tribe Called Quest. But
yeah, possibly, yes. Yeah. Trying to think how it goes. Yeah. Playing it in my head.
I did have a bit of a dive back into A Tribe Called Quest after I watched this, which is it's always a good time to do that.
Well,
really. Yeah.
Why not? You may as well, if you're going to do something like this, you may as well have a bit of a listen to the tunes. I didn't listen to them all, I must admit. I kind of I found all the albums on Amazon Music that I could, and any other streaming services, and kind of flicked through. I know that one, and kind of flick through the ones that I really know, and a couple of the ones I popped in for good measure just to see what they sounded like. But
some other facts about the music: People's Instinctive Travels in the Paths of Rhythm, which was their debut album, was the first album ever to get the 5 mics rating from the Source magazine, which younger listeners might not know, but that used to be a thing people wanted.
Right. Well, there you go. I don't even know what that is.
Source was like in its day, it was the premier hip hop magazine. And
right, okay.
There are a lot of rap songs that mention getting 5 mics from the Source because they had the mic instead of the star for their ratings as like the ultimate accolade.
Do you know, now you say that, yes, I can actually hear that in songs that I've heard them talk about the 5 mics. And I don't think I ever knew what it was all about.
Right.
So that kind of of my head, but that makes a lot of sense now about that. Yeah.
And the Source kind of went downhill in the early noughties because it had this it got this new owner who wanted it to like plug his failing rap career and B, pursue a feud with Eminem, which everyone thought at the time, because it's the early noughties, everyone thought, that's ridiculous. You're not going to win a feud with Eminem. And I'm sat here thinking, this is like the Iran-Iraq war. Can't both these fuckers lose?
Yeah, it should have maybe as well.
Yes.
But gotta say it's a great name for an album. People's Instinctive Travels and Paths and Rhyme. It's a brilliant name. I do like a nice long titled album. It's
You a Fiona Apple fan by any chance?
No, I don't even know who that is.
Oh, right. I was just thinking, I can't even remember what it was, but she had an album title that was like about 90 words long, and it's the longest album title ever.
Okay.
I don't know if Guinness tracked that one, but I'd be surprised if anyone beat it.
Yeah, well, yeah, probably. I just like when bands bring out something that's just got a really just obscure title that's just nice and long. It's like, what's the point in that?
Yeah,
but it just works. It's like the band Fuzzbox. Remember Fuzzbox?
Yeah.
Who were originally We've Got a Fuzzbox and we know how to use it. That was the name of their band.
Yeah.
But they shortened it once they became mainstream. But I just thought that was a much better title for the band.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No, and to have to sort of go to, we're going to have a short name because that's going to make us more popular on radio. It's like, come on.
This is part of the thing I admire about the Manic Street Preachers is that they achieved their period of greatest commercial success when their song titles were ridiculously overlong.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. They've got some ridiculous songs back in their back catalogue.
Yes.
I can't even think of names of songs, but
this is a slight break from the hip hop talk.
It is, isn't it? We've gone right off track.
It's an indulgence that I'm going to double down on because I remember when the Manic Street Preachers released an album that was based on the last tranche of lyrics that Richie Edwards had given them before he disappeared. Yeah. And there'd been like myths among fans about what was in that case that he gave them and what the songs would be like for years. And I remember before it came out, there was a piece in The Guardian that was sort of like, can the songs on the new Manic Street Preachers album possibly be as good as the song titles? It included such gems as Jackie Collins' Existential Question Time, Pretension Repulsion, and my personal favourite, Virginia State Epileptics Colony.
Brilliant. I must admit, the Manic's music and song lyrics were never the same after Richie was gone.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess that's when they then became popular, though. So
it was, to a great extent.
Don't know. Yeah,
I think they lost something, but they also gained the ability to have like a line of a song that James Dean Bradfield didn't have to go at the start to get out.
Yeah. I still can't forgive them for their cover version of "This Is the Day" by the other. So
a lot of people dislike that. It's I've always quite liked it, to be honest.
Really? It doesn't have a patch on the original. That's the thing.
No, I think that's fair. Yeah.
As most cover versions don't, but.
But
anyway, we've gone completely off topic there.
We have gone massively off topic. Yeah, the Manic Street Preachers do not have much of a cinematic footprint, so I'm happy to take that opportunity.
No. And it's probably best that they don't, to be honest.
Yeah.
Although there could probably be a very interesting documentary about their early careers and the disappearance and so on. So.
Imagine how long the frigging title would be, though. They'll never fit on a ticket.
Well, this one's quite a long title, let's be honest.
This is pretty wordy, Beats, Rhymes and Life, The Travels of a Tribe Called Quest. Also, it reveals that they were originally called Quest, and I forget, who was it who suggested a tribe called Quest?
It was Red Alert. He asked them what their name was, and they said we're called Quest. And then he introduced them as a tribe called Quest.
Yeah.
But I think it was just a kind of, now we've got a tribe called Quest. And he was just calling the Quest, but he put the tribe called bit at the start. And they then went, that's good. Quite
Quest
like that.
Sounds a bit like a laser tag venue. I assume that's why they changed that.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I think they do kind of just explain that they wanted to be called Quest and that was the name. But then when he said that, it was like, that's great. And Red Alert being such a figure in the hip hop scene at that point in America, that it was like, well, if he's called us that, that's what we've now got to be called, because he's just introduced us like on this show that everyone who's listening to hip hop is listening to. If we now go out and say called Quest, it's not going to work.
The version of it in the film is even better than that, because there's this moment where they say, we're a band called Quest, and Red Alert goes, he's just pausing us, tribe called Quest. And I thought, fucking hell, it's like that bit in The Social Network where Sean Parker goes, drop the just Facebook.
Yeah, it is a bit like that, actually. But I think it's all down to his Red Alert's ability at that point to spot talent. And I mean, that's what he was doing on his radio show, was spotting the latest talent in the hip hop scene and putting them out there and letting people hear what it was like. And I guess was then instrumental in getting them together with all the other bands at that time to make this different version of hip hop. That wasn't all fuck the police and whatever else. It was something a bit more uplifting and a bit more
kind of positive.
Right words. Positive.
Good vibesy. Yeah. Do you think people miss that kind of, I don't want to say gatekeeper because it's a word with negative connotations, but a tastemaker, I guess, would be a better way of putting it.
From point of view of a DJ on radio, you mean?
Well, in any way, it always strikes me that it's telling that one of the first things that a big site like Amazon or Spotify will do is get their recommendations engine sorted, because the world is vast. The internet is even bigger. People have a need for someone to say, I bet you'll like this.
Yeah, I guess so. And we don't have it now, I suppose. You know, if you listen to radio stations now, the DJs are just playing what they've been told to play by whoever. There aren't those, I guess, independent radio channels that pop up that you twist your dial to and you might actually catch something that's very different. It's all very, very commercialized. Pirate radio doesn't really exist that same way.
No,
And I
not
guess
really. No.
certainly our generation, or my generation, growing up in the 70s and 80s, we didn't really have it. Radio 1 was what you tuned to for the latest sounds.
Yeah.
And nowadays, I guess it's YouTube and TikTok that make music happen. I mean, I'm a school teacher by day, and certainly at school, the kids at school, they get their music from TikTok videos.
Yeah.
So all the latest bands that they're listening to are recommended because that artist or the probably the label that has signed that artist has paid an awful lot of money to TikTok to put their song behind something so they can sing over the top of it or make a silly video using that thing. And that's how it works.
Yeah, it's a gameable system. Although I do admire those occasional. I mean, the radio was a gameable system, of course. That's why payola is a word that exists. You know, you can't get too rose tinted about it, but occasionally it throws up something mad. I think there was like a 2002 even Mountain Goat song that went viral on TikTok recently because it was just,
it's amazing the amount of things that do go viral on there because, you know, someone just goes, right, we're going to stick that on TikTok and you can make a little video over the top of it and they just go out there. The things that, you know, like I say, I teach teenagers and the things that they come in singing, I think, hold on, I remember that from when I was a kid. Where have you got that from?
Yeah.
My own kids occasionally will sing things like, and it's like, where have you heard that? And
I
I've
guess
heard it somewhere.
Part of where they hear it from, of course, which is the last thing that I think we need to talk about a bit more with regards to this film, is sampling. That these songs have a life in other songs.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to me, that kind of early gold rush sort of era of sampling where there's a Beastie Boys song on Paul's Boutique which has like 6 Beatles samples on. It's just, there's no way that anyone's ever going to be able to do that again, ever.
No. But I mean, the whole, all of the music at that time, all this hip hop music was all due to sampling. I mean, it's how they start off. A DJ sticks on a record and starts, you know, scratching it and mixing it in a certain way. And then someone stands up and raps over the top of it. That, you know, there's no original music being made, really. There's original rhymes. But the actual beats behind it are somebody else's beats that are just being, I guess, live remixed is the best way of putting it, because they're just scratching it backwards and forwards to make it sound a little bit different.
And it almost takes the whole thing back to original folk music where, you know, the idea was that it doesn't belong to anyone. You just go from town to town, and if people want music played, you play one of these songs. It's just that this version of folk music had the misfortune to appear when a lot of very rich artists had very expensive lawyers.
Yes. I guess now you get samples in music and there's someone somewhere has paid an awful lot of money to get that sample to be there. And as they say in this, at one point, you know, one of the albums costing more than anyone ever expected because of that one sample.
It's in Midnight Marauders, they say it cost as much to clear the samples as it did to actually record the record, which is incredible.
Oh, it's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. Especially because for most of the samples, you'd really have to be listening really hard or know your music really, really well to know what it is that they've sampled in the first place. And I think there's a lot of that, an awful lot of hip hop music that you go, I recognize it, but no idea. It could be anything.
Yeah. That is one of the main deleterious effects that those lawsuits had on the actual music, rather than just the finances of the artists doing it. Is like when you listen to stuff like A Tribe Called Quest or Paul's Boutique, either Beastie Boys or the first De La Soul album, it's like this beautiful collage of little fragments they've took from everywhere, and I find that so wonderful. But starting in about the mid-90s, you start to get hip-hop that really rips the arse out of its one sample, because I guess they paid the money and they need to get their money's worth out of it.
And they just use that one song over and over again to get it. Just in different ways. I mean, I must admit, the DJs in these early days of hip hop were very, very talented. The way they could spin a record or two records together on a couple of decks and make effectively a new song out of the samples was absolutely amazing. You know, you try doing that now, and it's difficult to do digitally, let alone with a couple of bits of vinyl and a couple of needles.
Yeah. It's just
very
great,
clever stuff.
like bedroom creativity, isn't it? Which is the engine of pop music all the time. Yeah. Well, is there anything more you wanted to raise before we wrapped up?
I think it's probably worthwhile just mentioning the amount of the artists that are in there that obviously were inspired by A Tribe Called Quest at some point in time and appear in this Talking Heads thing at the end. I mean, you got the whole of the Beastie Boys; they're all in there.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure DJ Lethal from Limp Bizkit pops up at some point. And you've got Pharrell's in there.
Money Love.
I'm trying to think of all the names, but there's so many artists that appear in this. It
absolutely,
is absolutely a who's who of hip hop. I think, as I said at the start, you know, if you looked at the credits for this, if you go on IMDb and put up full cast and crew, the list of hip hop names that appear in this is just unbelievable.
And not just in front of the camera either. You know, obviously there's a lot of Tribe Called Quest music in it, but the incidental score is done by Madlib.
Yeah. So there's some great music in it. I mean, like I say, there's not often a full song plays, but there's enough to get you a taster. I would say, you know, if you've never heard anything by A Tribe Called Quest, which I probably think nobody out there could probably say they have heard nothing by them, because you probably have heard it and not known who it was. But if you don't think you've heard it, have a watch of the film. You'll certainly hear some songs you go, oh, I'd like to know a little bit more about that, and then probably track down some of the albums, have a listen.
Well, listeners, if you enjoy what you've heard, you can donate to our Patreon at www.patreon.com, where you'll get a monthly bonus episode of this show, access to our other movie podcast, Director's Lottery, and twice weekly classic Doctor Who reviews from me. Indeed. Thank you for that impressed noise. But until next week, that's been your lot from Pop Screen. I've been Graham.
And I've been Gav.
And we'll see you next week.